So these are the refinements to the May 6th bill. Next, please. So there are 18 clusters. So there are 8 clusters of proposed amendments. So governance and anti-capture, workforce welfare and AI, incentives and industrial policy, modernization, anti-piracy, LGU coordination and operations, culture, heritage and education, fiscal architecture, transition and continuity. And I just wanted to share quickly about the 8 refinements. Next, please. Okay, so on the composition, DOT replaces DOF, and then LCP replaces the ILG. So the academe moves to the Text Helix Council, and a creative workforce seat is added at the commission table. Another one is a Cinema Evaluation Committee. So a 30-member CED collapses to a 7-person CEC with rotation with an explicit MTRCB carve-out. So meron din tayong endowment IP, which is the third draft's 50-50 copyright share, is replaced with full producer IP retention plus a contingent repayment on commercial success. So pag-usapan po natin yan, 50-50 or 100% for the producers. Meron din tayong skills registry, which is clearly assigned to FAP under EU 70. So we are institutionalizing this. Meron din tayong worker welfare and AI. So the Garcia law is incorporated, 11 hour rest, and first Philippine streaming residual framework with AI consent clause. Meron din tayong LG permit fees, which is going to be standardized across all 81 provinces and all cities and municipalities. So yan po ang magiging topic of discussion natin. We're hoping that NCP and LMP will also be asked about this, and I hope they can support. This is streamlining to make it a one-stop shop, no, para sa ating industry. Meron din tayong anti-piracy and the first Philippine SPOD content investment mandate plus the interagency, again, on the Anti-Piracy Coordination Council. Meron din tayong fiscal architecture, the 500 million initial appropriation made explicit with the Film Industry Development Fund as a single special trust fund. Next, please. So when we were looking at the stakeholder um, position papers and from the discussions, we have a traceability matrix, so we know where all of those came from. So just quickly share. FDCP had 7 amendments. FAP had 4. CAP had the theatrical window amendment. MTRCB, like which they carved out part of the bill. PAGCOR requested the integrity floor and fiscal clarity. DepEd Ched TESDA is for the literacy and skills level for our workforce. DFA is added for the cultural diplomacy. And producer organizations attributed to the endowment IP, PDV, SVOD, and then NCCA for the cultural national deposit and CPZ heritage safeguards. IPOFIL for site blocking and anti-piracy, LCP and DLG for the standardized fees, and LGU coordinating bodies. So again, with DBM, alam po natin yan, is a single trust fund and clear appropriation. So I want to thank again REPO for the Hexahelix suggestion and the expanded mandate, and Repatide for the governance refinements and worker protections. So again, wala po kaming in-ignore na position paper, lahat po nandito. Please. So just want to share what's not changing so we don't have to tackle it in terms of much deliberation. So I want to assure the body that what is not changing is a cinema evaluation criteria. So the grading procedure, we modernize only the reward link. No? So private sector investment incentives, the Film Endowment Fund is a vehicle, and the endowment evaluation factors. The regional film commissions remain discretionary. So depende po kung gusto nyong i-establish and or i-set up ang regional film commissions. The authority to accept donations is still there. The cinematics, no, are there also. They are stable, and the proposed amendments um, are fine, but they do not redirect any of that. Next. So this is where we still need help. No? So first is a DFA 60 plus FSP comparative matrix. If it's still outstanding, we defer to sections 6, 22, and 46, which is the finalization to engrossment. Second, we need a DBM costing of the 1.5 billion peso figure. We want to request a costing memo from DBM or probably the Congressional Planning and Budget Department before committee report transmittal. Sana po sabi sila at least supportive sila. Yun yung talagang kailangan natin. Third is political comfort with the 45% cap given the 2026 budget season optics and 2027. Fourth is whether to coordinate a parallel MTRCB Act amendment in the 20th Congress or maintain strict separation. So after this gets deliberated and passed, the question is, will we be amending the MTRCB charter so that these are aligned? So something that's open and for discussion. So next, please. So just when once we deliberate and want to hear from you, this is my formal ask for the stakeholders to manifest things on record. First is the concurrence with the proposed amendments to subject bill as presented and further refined in writing across 8 clusters. Second, confirmation that the amendments accommodate the headline asks in your respective position papers, with any residual reservations placed on record before inclusion in the committee report. And third, concurrence that the substitute bill as amended may be approved by this committee and transmitted for plenary consideration. So um, I will do that later. Request for it after all of you have made your proper manifestations and deliberations about those contested issues. So again, last piece. So again, I just want to share why this matters. So this sets up the Philippines for a 24-year biggest governance restructuring of the film industry. Again, we want a modern and ASEAN anchored film commission. We want mandatory deposit and film literacy. So we want to become the country that exports more of our Filipino culture across the world, even if that means through the streaming platforms. So we want that economic competitiveness as well with the 45% QP tax credit, PDV and green uplifts. We want standardized LGU permitting fees. No? And we want to compete with enabling industries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia for international production on Filipino terms. And we want worker protection with the streaming residuals, fully consent, live in our rest, with the Eddie Garcia law, and an FAP-led skills registry. So we want protection for Filipino films. We want workers upskilled. We want to be economically competitive. And so this is what we are voting on. Ideally, if we all agree today that we can vote on it to be passed in the plenary. So this is the future of the Filipino film industry. So maraming salamat po. And I look forward to this discussion. Thank you. So the chair now opens the floor for any comments for from our resource persons. Does anyone want to go ahead?
Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair, clarification on section 6, composition of the commission. As currently worded, it says the commission shall be composed of a chairperson and 11 members, 3 of whom shall be regular members, while the other 7 shall serve in ex officio capacity. This would mean that there would be 12 members. There's a chairperson and I think should this not read a chairperson and 10 members, meaning the whole commission comprises 11 members in total?
We have 7 ex officio plus 3 regular members. So that's 10. And then chairperson 11.
Yes, sir.
So it has to be chairperson and, and 10 members.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you so much for that.
Mr. Chair, may we be recognized also? Film Academy.
Yes, please. From
From the Film Academy.
yeah, Film Academy.
Yes, we would like to also propose on section 6 as well. We humbly suggest amending section 6 to include FAP Director General in the ex officio seats. We believe that the inclusion of the workforce sector representation is crucial in this section of the bill.
So to add the FAP head.
Yes, we have submitted to COMSEC our proposed amendments. We brought it today, the hard copy, sir, for your reference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any comments to add FAP to ex officio members? Huh? A regular member, ex officio member.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just clarification. So, FAP currently, I believe, is under the Department of. What is the question is what is the current connection or uh, structure of the FAP vis-a-vis the Department of Trade and Industry?
At the moment, we're an attached agency with DTI.
I think the question is because the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry is part of the ex officio members. No, so if an attached agency head will be added, then that means it may open for a Department of Education, the DILG, DFA, DFA, DOF, for other representatives to come in. Any comments about this opinion before we share? Yes, Konglan.
Mr. Chair, I think the reason probably why FAP would like to include them as part of the ex officio member because the undersecretary under the Department of Trade and Industry has a close connection with the with the Film Academy of the Philippines. When I was part of their presentation a few months ago, he was the one giving us the updates on what was going on with the Film Academy of the Philippines, which was highly informative. So I presume if the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry will not give enough inputs, I do believe the head or the undersecretary under the Department of Trade and Industry who heads FAP, or he's the executive director of the Film Academy of the Philippines, would highly would have more information with regards to the film industry. My personal opinion upon attending their presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kongulani. There might be issues with conflict because funding and regulatory into one. Yes.
Probably this explains that under line 36, the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry or his or her duly designated regular representative. That might fill in the position of the Film Academy of the Philippines Executive Director.
Well, yes. So kung lang, it will have to be discussed internally sa kanila kung si FAP ang ilalagay as representative. So actually, I was thinking, because if we add it to the bill and they might fall and we make it too explicit, it um, might be too rigid also. So maybe it could be an internal arrangement within the department to say that the most qualified would be that position. But if you have any comments about that, yes.
If I may just share, Mr. Chair, for the FDCP, we believe that FAP would be an attached agency already to the commission, and also they're a member of the FPO board. That's why we were thinking that they could be not included in the commission since they will be unattached. That's one. And the next point is that they're already a member of the FPO board, which will be institutionalized with this bill. And also, DTI should still be included as member of the commission because they are very much has stake in terms of the economic contribution of uh, both local and
Yes. Oh, thank you.
foreign.
So basically, you're saying is we may not need to explicitly add FAP because they're already attached and they're already part of the discussions and workings of within this new bill. And you're saying that a DTI representative would give a broader economic outlook for the industry. So, po, I hope that's okay with you.
We'll discuss further with FTCP for
Okay.
any clarifications from
All right.
us.
Thank you. But we taken your position paper
Thank
for
you.
this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one other item regarding section 6. The 7 members who are ex officio members are listed, plus the proviso that they can be represented by his or her duly designated regular representative. This seems to be common for all the 7, except for the president of the Cultural Center of the Philippines. Might it not be better if that is also added to that designation as well? Thank you.
Apologies. Can you please repeat that?
Would the provision for the his or her duly designated regular representative on section 6
Mm-hmm.
be also applied to the president of the Cultural Center of the Philippines, as that seems to be the only one that did not have that?
Yes. In fact, in the new with the working bill that so you're looking at the okay. Sorry, there's a semantical error, but the president of the CCP should also be duly designated representative. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. So again, to recap, it's chairperson and 10 members, which was the approved, well, if there are no objections, approved amendment. And then the president of the CCP or his or her duly designated representative. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes.
With regard to the section 6 or the composition of the commission, the NCC recognizes the effort to rationalize and streamline the composition of the proposed Philippine Film Commission. But we respectfully recommends, we apologize also na hindi po namin include sa position paper namin. But we recommend po sana that the representation from the NCCE uh, turned into the
Chair.
institutional leadership of the NCC instead of limiting representation solely to the cinema committee.
Okay, yes. So,
Because
kayo,
just to
kasi kung
reiterate,
nangyari, kayo na lang yung mas specific eh. Everyone else is recognizing the secretary or the leadership or his or her duly representative. So, you're saying is let's make it more
institutional leadership.
institutional leadership.
Also
But
because
keep
of
them or his or her duly designated representative.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. At least galing na sa inyo yan. So we'll be standardizing this. Everyone agrees, no? Okay. Okay. Everyone okay with the first 6 sections? Yes.
Morning. Mr. Chair, if we could just manifest, particularly section 5 and 9, where we are stating that we have to institutionalize peso as an attached agency. However, under section 9, mandate and powers of the commissions, there are functions that are already being carried out by peso. So we just want to express if there could be a clear delineation so that we avoid overlap internally. Right now, all for foreign facing activities and incentives, it is under FESO,
Okay.
and local, it is under FDCP. Thank you.
Okay. So what is your suggested amendment?
If it could be removed under the section 9, mandates and powers, and can be just clearly stated as functions and powers of PESO, particularly section C,
Sorry, you mean section 5?
section 5, if we could we have a position paper where we are recommending the specific language where we are just lifting exactly how it is written in EO 674 and 674A.
Okay.
And then for section 9, mandates and powers, we would like to specify paragraph C, G, L, and M, which are already being carried out by FESO.
CG
C,
executive order.
CG, L, L, and M. 9 of the substitute bill, Mr. Chair.
L. Okay. So your recommendation is to remove
And
and reword.
reword if there are functions that are already being carried out by FESO, it can be like commission through FESO to execute the following.
So it's you're taking out redundancies.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Make it more streamlined. Okay, let's please note that. Sorry. Good. Anything else for section 6? 5, 6. Yes.
League of Cities, Mr.
Ah, Ms. Veron, kamusta? Thank you for joining us.
Chair.
Good morning. Sir, we noticed in section 6, there was a discussion on the proposed amendment between the DILG
Yeah.
and LCP. I don't know if this is the right forum, but you would like to manifest. We welcome the inclusion of LCL, League of Cities of the Philippines, which is part of the RA 9167. It's just very consequential, Mr. Chair, that we have under creative cities, the Quezon City as part of the creative city on film. So I think while the ILG, the discussion earlier is the agency will choose a representative. We're just a bit wary that if it's the ILG, will be lost in translation if not League of Cities will not be chosen as its duly authorized representative. So it would be an affirmative action on the part of the author of the bills to consider the League of Cities of the Philippines as a member of the commission.
Yeah.
Consideration
Yes.
of the authors, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ron. So in the May 6th subject bill, it says DILG, and then the new proposed, which presented here today, actually changes DILG to League of Cities of the Philippines. So this is for discussion, whether we want to take in DILG or replace it finally with LCP, no? So ito lang yung akin. Alam naman natin na ang LCP is 149 cities now, no? Correct? There are how many municipalities? 1,000 municipalities? 1,400. If we will be adding LCP, considering that doon naman talaga yung maraming film na nangyari, especially with QC, no? So, baka magtampo ang LMP. So, lang yung sa akin, if we add LCP, we may as well add LMP, include LMP. So, before I, say in explicits, I want to ask everyone, kung gusto niyo ba i-keep ang DLG and remove it for LCP and or remove it for LCP and LMP? No, so open for discussion, yes.
Mr. Chair, I may just add. LCP and LMP are being mentioned in the bill, specifically section 36. It indicates that they will be consulted for matters that
Yes. So you're saying to keep the dahil iko-consult naman ng LCP and LMP.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
kung Arjo.
Yeah, not for any, I totally understand po. All the ideas, experiences, and things that you could contribute, I totally agree. Though, as a start of the bill, I think we always wanted to keep the core of who the heads are per agency. We have to lessen the people so that there are less brains, less politics, less everything. It's just really to emphasize on this bill to regulate everything. And I say, on my position po, I would rather keep the ALG online. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, yes. More brains is good, but more politics is bad. Yes, in that sense, no? That considering in terms of siguro like a longer discussion on matters, but we want to have the best and comprehensive decisions. But yun nga, yes, Ms. Veroncong Arjo is saying that maybe we can request the ALG to coordinate with LCP and LMP. But again, open for discussion po dito. Yes.
Sir, just to share historically, the reason why the League of Cities was included in the original charter of the FDCP was because the funding provision for the Cinema Evaluation Committee was based and anchored on the amusement taxes from the cities. And that's the reason why the LCP was included in the original charter. But I believe that given that the participation of the DILG in the present substitute bill also relies on the issuance of permits across all the government levels across the country, it may stand to reason that the DILG would be the better representative for that sector in the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just want to recap again, Ms. Veron, that we are hoping to have a standardized for the film industry ang sa LCP and LMP when it gets to taxes, no? So locally. So yun po ang gusto natin maging standard. Yes, Ms. Veron.
Well, that's Mr. Chair. Yeah, while we understand the reasoning behind the need for independent commission, thus we have to streamline the membership of or the composition of the commission. While we understand that, we just want to put on record that the League of Cities of the Philippines will have so many memberships in so many committees, Mr. Chair. This is the only committee that either Israel can can stand that we participate in regular meetings and the trajectory for creative industries. There's a cognizance among the cities that it's very important. So while we understand the need to standardize, to simplify, I think it's a bureaucratic goal, principle for efficiency. We just would like to manifest that the League of Cities of the Philippines would like to be included in the commission. While it is true that it is written in the text of the bill, so it is section 16, Mr. Chair, item 4 and section 22, where consultations are embedded for League of Cities and League of Municipalities. I cannot speak for the League of Municipalities of the Philippines, and maybe that's one of the weakness of this representation to be included in the commission, but it's just that being with the League of Cities of the Philippines for 20 plus years now, Mr. Chair, this is the first time that the city, specifically our national chairperson, Mayor Joy Belmont, really took cognizance, and we have very good experiences with FDCP on the partnership and collaboration. If the authors would like to approach that at the institutional level, we understand. I just want to make it clear in the manifestation that collaboration, if you really want to do LGU coordination, which is part and parcel of the contentious provisions that you want to exemplify in this bill. I think it's high time because it's only LGU. It's not there's no like affirmative action. I think if Mr. Chair, if I may say so, and apologies for being straightforward about it. So something to consider, and yeah, so we're very active in FDCP, Mr. Chair, and honorable members of this committee. I think, the cudgels and say that we want to be part in this commission, and we understand why it's not tenable right now, given the trajectory that the bill is heading to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. We feel the passion and to be included. And actually, I appreciate that because I'm, I'm I can feel for as a previous mayor also that to be part of the table would mean more buy-in, and more responsibility at stake. But I wanted to ask you, um, do you think that LMP and League of Provinces should also be included?
I think because so short answer, Mr. Chair, no. Um, I think people who wants to be part should be on the table. And the reason why it's a compressed work week, we're not supposed, we don't have work today, but we were sent today just to show you how important contracts in
The national president,
professional chairperson.
national chairperson,
Yeah. So it's important. So cannot
and who's the national chairperson again?
Mayor council right now, Mr. Chair. So it's the timing of your Rachel can testify. And the question now, Mr. Chair, is have we been remiss with our job? That's why we're being removed. In my report, I would just say that because you want to streamline and you want to standardize, but just can't go home without the 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vance.
And I never party to my board and
Okay,
thank you, Mr.
Atente, maybe if you have a comment on that, do you stand firm? Do you want to include them now? What is ano po yung inyong gusto?
That's so passionate. I love the heart. We're all here, the same mission at the end of the day. So I think with Mr. Chair, we have to come to an agreement. Discuss. Again, we're not trying to push people away as much as possible. We're just trying to regulate it in a better, to put a better system to the industry. So that being said, it's so hard, but Yeah, I think it's still for further discussion from now.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
definitely we appreciate the passion and the love for this industry, ma'am. It really pierces through your speech. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you, Kong Arjo.
Mr. Chair.
Maybe one or two that can speak on this and we can go to the next.
Mr. Chair, once the law will be passed, the law is here to stay, regardless who sits in a certain position. Well, we understand that the League of Cities is very passionate right now, but leadership can change. And later, should time come that the League of Municipalities would also be active, as well as the League of Provinces. So mas maganda na po that we see things fairly. Anyway, the DILG is there to represent any concerns they can put forward their concerns, raise their concerns with the ILG. In that way, um, um, when leadership change, yung batas natin, it stays.
Yeah.
And it's applicable to everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that manifestation, Kong Shirley. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Like, okay.
Just on section 5, Mr. Chair, we just want to seek clarification on section 5, paragraph 1. The FAP must be under the administrative supervision of the commission. Does that and what does that entail for FAP?
That means um, plantilla and personnel when we mean administrative.
Film commission. They will be under.
If I
Under the, we should be under the commission in terms of like org structure.
Mr. Chair, in light, we respectfully propose adding the phrase below as an amendment to section 5, paragraph 1. The FAP must be under the administrative supervision of the commission, provided that in the exercise of its mandates, the FAP shall enjoy full functional, structural, and operational independence from the commission.
Yeah, to note, just wanted to share that the others are also under administrative and technical supervision. So FESO and PFA are also. If ever that would be granted as a separate uh, structure, then the independency of the other two should also be recognized. Yes.
If I may speak, Mr. Chair. The reason why we included this in our proposal is because the FAP is currently handling grievances when it comes to like complaints against stakeholders in the film industry. So we were just concerned, like
Mhm.
since the FDCP also gives out grants, if it comes to a point that the film workforce would have to file a grievance against someone who works for a film that was given a grant by the FDCP, then there would be like potentially on a conflict of interest. So we were wondering if there's anything that we could agree on to avoid that conflict.
I see what you're saying, Attorney. No? So, basically, you're saying that to protect it from any um, potential conflict in a political scenario.
We would just like to have autonomy when it comes to like our guild accreditation and handling the grievances that the FA.
Okay, I see. I understand. Okay. Any comments from the? Well, yes.
It may be, Mr. Chairman, I suggest that probably the use of the word administrative supervision here pertains to its legal definition under the administrative code, and perhaps that might be revisited. If I remember it correctly, that means that the agency will be free to handle its day-to-day operations but does have to report to the mother agency, which would be the Film Commission in this respect.
Yes,
So,
Attorney, do you want to
in
speak?
that regard, you want to see clarification. If we do report, like if we do handle grievances and like guild accreditations, if we do report, then that mean that the film commission would sort of like function as an appellate body where if you have grievances, then it would be elevated to them, or would they stay completely hands off?
So, well, the definition on Philippine admin law, it says that administrative supervision is overseeing an agency's operations to ensure laws and its own rules are followed. The supervisor can check, audit, and require compliance, but cannot reverse, modify, or substitute its judgment for the supervised body's acts.
Thank you. We'd like to put that on record now. Thank you.
Yeah. It's in the admin law, so uh, all right. Thank you. Anyone want to comment?
It's on a different section. So we would just like Mr. Chair to remove the Philippine Film Archive in Section 5 as one of the attached agencies because it's already included in Section 14, which is basically saying that if the commission will be establishing or institutionalize the Philippine Film Archive.
Ah, yes. Okay. So with this, is it to add it as an attach, or you want to establish your own?
Let's retain Section 14 instead of having it included in Section 5.
So retain section 15. 15 is Philippine Film Archive. Yeah. So you're saying you want to establish your own.
Yes, Mr. Chair, because it's also part of the Section 9 mandate. So since right now it's under FDCP,
Yes.
we just want to institutionalize it and not to create a separate agency that will have its own uh head.
So you part of and not essentially establishing a separate film archive with its own administrative and technical operations. So you want it as part of your responsibility. Okay. That sounds like an efficient and streamlined process. If okay with everyone, does everyone agree? So pagiging part na lang ng FDCP's responsibilities when kayo na bahala sa in terms of kung sino man yung magiging personnel included, the equipment, etc. without establishing its own, no, as a film archive. Any comments? Yes, Kong Sarah.
Mr. Chair, with regard to Section 9, letter O, page 5, line 31 ho. Yung tungkol dito sa uh, identification and facilitation of the establishment of creative production zone facilities. So I'm just concerned if this particular function of the commission will coincide with the functions of PEZA under the special economic zone. Wala po bang magiging duplication, or will this particular section or provision should be another bill amending the Special Economic Zone Act of 1995?
Nandito ba yung PESA? Wala PESA dito, no? Observe.
nasa kapangyarihan din po kasi ng PEZA yung pagsiset ng policies ng establishment facilitation as a part of their power to recommend to the president kung magpaproclaim po tayo ng isang lugar bilang isang eco zone.
Yes.
So I'm concerned with all those things.
Yes, Bong, thank you. Actually, in the previous meetings when PEZA was here, it's supposed to be in coordination with PEZA, and then we will be recommending creative production zones. But it seems that the bill saying that there should be creative economic zones. So we will be hoping that the IRR will provide for that in some PFC, PEZA, and FIRB coordination so that there won't be any duplications of zones. So kailangan po nila mag-coordinate so that, but it gives the Film Development Act recommendatory powers to PEZA.
So if ever po ba hindi nito malabag yung ating one subject, one bill rule, if ever meron po tayong isang particular provision dito na mangailangan talaga ng mas malinaw na paghahati ng kapangyarihan sa pagitan ng PEZA at ng commission pagdating sa recommendation sa Office of the President.
Mm,
I may, Mr. Chair,
one by one. Wait a minute. I think we will take a look at that if it's it goes against a one bill one title, but we believe that it's also in the going to be in the powers of the FDCP. That's why we are amending it. So should be fine.
Apo, yung isa pong pwede natin pag-aralan kung paano hindi magiging duplication pero magiging complementary yung rules ng PEZA at ng commission pagdating dito. At ang pwede rin po natin pag-aralan kung kailangan pa ba magkaroon ng amendment mismo sa Special Economic Zone Law. Kasi yung may nakalagay po doon na mga sinasabi lang na kung ano yung mga dapat na covered pagdating sa Special Economic Zones. So kung kailangan po natin doon malagay mismo yung creative production zone, then we can perhaps study further if that would require an amendment to the Special Economic Zone Act.
With the creative production zones, because PEZA does not have any existing category for this, yung location-based film, diba? So with this, we may be able to create our own through a different incentive structure, different purpose for the zoning. Because for PEZA, it works under Create with a 11534 framework. So this will have a different tax credit engine actually from PEZA. Even though we recommend that there won't be any duplication, we will have our own tax incentive structure, which will be which FDCP will be able to have authority of. So ang magiging no duplication is to the IRR coordination to make sure that once this is implemented, that they will not have any duplication zone. So if ever na magkakaroon ng creative production zone dito, whether that's physical, on-site, or hybrid, designated siya. And then they should also be coordinating with PEZA so that there will be no duplicates. And then they will have their own incentive structure, etc. So it should not be against PEZA amendment. We also would want that the FDCP have that one-stop shop and that authority. Para sa FDCP mas magiging kasi yung FDCP supposedly ang may contact, may industry knowledge kung saan dapat. No? So in terms of amending the PEZA, I believe it should be in this bill instead. But what I mentioned earlier, we'll be taking a look if it's one bin, one title. But I believe it should be also under the FDCP Act that it is possible. But we will look into that for any further confirmation. Yes. Okay.
For section 16, Mr. Chair, you would like to add or inclusion in the exhibition division under number 1 item, Deputy Executive Director for Operations Service. It's for the reason for this is that our exhibition division is the one responsible for our cinematics, as well as OneFlix or the streaming platform that is being managed by FDCP or the commission. So we just want to make sure that it's included in the divisions under the commission. Thank you.
Okay. So we can include that. Thank you. Yes, Kong Shirley.
Mr. Chair, just some clarificatory questions. Just don't want to leave some stone unturned.
Yeah.
In section 21, the local production shall be entitled to the benefits if they meet the minimum QPE, qualified Philippine expenditures, the 10 million threshold, Mr. Chair. Not exclude the low budget. Will it not exclude the low budget yet culturally important film, especially indie and regional film that help contribute to the definition of our national identity?
Section 21, correct?
Yes, yes.
And what
The threshold po na 10 million
ah
for feature films will it not exclude yun pong mga independent and regional films that are culturally important that somehow help define our national identity?
so the 10 million
So
cap.
they will not kung 10 million po yung threshold, may exclude po yung ganong klaseng film. Then second concern ko po. Isahin ko na lang, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
yes, yes, please.
Second concern is on section 20, prima facie compliance, the inaction of the LGU for 7 days would constitute prima facie compliance, and then the production may proceed after 7 days of inaction. So, yung concern ko lang dito, Mr. Chair, will it not encroach po sa baka magkaroon tayo ng mga constitutional vulnerabilities dito,
For
especially
local autonomy.
local autonomy and the police power. Like 7 days, for instance, there are other things that has to be addressed with especially in the local government or even in the barangay level. Security concerns, heritage protection, environmental concerns. And then pag 7 days na walang action, prima facie na siya na compliance. Prima facie compliance. So, baka magkaroon tayo ng constitutional vulnerability dito.
Thank you, Kong Shirley. Miss Viron, who's an LCP, can
And
you
then,
comment on this?
Then, isahin ko na, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Isa na. Yung ano lang po, section 5 and section 14. It's basically a repetition. Ang section 14 ng section 5, letter, yeah, number 3. Minus the last paragraph of section 5, number 3.
Section 5, number 3. Okay. Ano po yan, Kong Curly?
Section 5, section 5, number 3 is basically a repetition.
Oh, okay. It was mentioned earlier.
It's a repetition of section 5.
Yes, yes po. Na-mention kanina. Thank you, Kong Shirley. So, we will be, actually, yun nga, wala pa tayong closure doon. That's why I wanted to bring it up again earlier. So,
3 concerns.
yeah, in a previous meeting, I remember Kong Brian ko talking about how FPJ's restoration, film restoration, is one of the most extensive that we have today. So I had wanted him to comment, but he's not here. But I do want to ask FDCP how your restoration efforts are. Do you think that it should be part of the responsibility, or do you think that they should have their own administrative and technical operational support?
Chair. For the restoration efforts, I think the current setup where it is currently under the Philippine Film Archive works because it really is connected function, the preservation plus the restoration of it. The important thing though is at this point, I don't think there is a consistent budget. So it changes year to year. uh, if you will allow me, when I was with ABS-CBN before, we used to have an annual budget of about 20 to 30 million, of which we were doing 20 to 30 movies. So we would just scale it more complicated, less complicated, and whatnot. So I think that was a very, very important thing for us to have been able to do all of those movies. Right now, I think you've seen Pinangunit Kulang is being restored with Tuwata. Magnifico is already going to be restored with Central. But technically we are having such a hard time grappling for funding. We
Mm.
get it here, we get it here, and whatnot. It would be very important if it is really a key function that there would be stable budget that is given on an annual basis, and it would be the discretion of the Philippine Film Archive how to prioritize it responsibly. So
Mm.
it's not as if we're going to go with all of the more difficult, expensive films. We would want to do the cross section of difficult and whatnot. And the difficulty is we are racing against time. If, for example, we will prioritize the movies that are pre-1970,
Mhm.
the 2000 movies that have been done, only about 350 survive in some form, and only about 70% are in full prints.
Mhm.
So a lot of them are also suffering from vinegar syndrome. So when you have that kind of a situation, there is a certain urgency and priority in getting all of those projects going. Once the vinegar syndrome or any other defect starts, it's a progressive thing. You cannot really stop it anymore. So, and sadly, like for example, recently I just found out a movie like Relacion, which is from the 1980s of Regal. When we scanned it in 1990, it was still a very, very good print. My understanding right now from Regal is parts of the reels are already in a very bad condition and may not even be scannable. So you do have that kind of a problem existing right now. So hopefully we can get the funding.
Yeah, so sir, it seems that you're leaning towards having its own, basically retaining it on Section 5 because I believe that preserving our cultural heritage in terms of these films, especially back then, because ang kwento nga ni Kong Richard Gomez the last time that may nakita siyang um, bata na may trumpeta na galing sa rolyo.
Yes.
So imagine lahat yun, those are stories, films that are
Correct.
going to be gone forever.
Yeah, that's a
Hindi na yan may napapreserve. Sayang, and those things are supposedly priceless, diba? When we get to further in time, mas nagiging valuable po siya. And we will never be able to teach generation in terms of showing them what kind of films that we had back then. So maybe we should keep it in the an attached agency so that it's explicitly, uh, you know, um, given the attention it's and hopefully budget that it's needed.
uh, I'm actually not too sure how to answer this because I think from the setup, I agree with ED Rachel that it does really works best as it falls within the FDCP. I don't know if the implication of item 5 is it's taken out of that. Because functionally, a lot of the thing once we've preserved and restored, a lot of the things that we would be doing would be funneled through other activities of the FDCP, whether it's the exhibition sector or whether it's the festival sector and whatnot. It's part of a chain that will flow into everything that FDCP does. So being part of that, I think, is integral, but it does have to have its own specific budget and mandate within that structure.
You wanted its own or in within?
Within.
Okay. The last part kasi you were saying parang its own, but then own within, right? So, which is essentially what Section 5 is. No, I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes.
Again,
I understand. I
but,
understand.
I understand your, I know, Sir Leo, your experience in restoring films and, in your ABS, I know. Um, Grabe, I'm sure it's expensive, to restore these
Yeah.
films. And you don't exactly know where to start considering there's so many films. And the harder to restore, syempre mas mahal yung
Yes.
kailangan in terms of the
Yes.
time and the intricacy of the work, di ba?
Yes. Yes.
So do you think you can ensure that even if it's part of as a responsibility of FDCB, it will be given the proper attention and budget?
I,
Because if we take this out of Section 5 and say that's part of your responsibility, we were going to, you know, essentially give the FDCP the discretion. So
uh,
how do we ensure that film restoration is going to be part of your budget?
Insert setup. We have a separate FFO or
Microphone, please.
separate organizational outcome for the archive. The challenge really is the budget that is being allocated to DBM. But most likely, if the budget for the commission will be increased, there's also bigger chance that the budget for film preservation would also be increased.
Yes. So if you're saying if we add it as an attached agency, it will give more, how do you say this, responsibility to DBM to add budget to it.
Possibly, Mr. Chair. The concern if we make it as an attached agency is that because the output or the product of the PFA is an input to the other programs of FDCP, like the festivals, the
Yeah.
cinematheques.
So it's not an attached agency.
That's why we're still leaning on having it being managed by the commission. So not as an attached agency. But if the pleasure of the committee is for it to be an attached agency, we would like it to be for the commission to have the administrative and technical supervision for
Yeah.
the PFA.
Yeah. So yun lang yung tanong. If you make it an attached agency, magiging it will be budgeted and may responsibility. But you're saying part naman ng function nyo, so hindi na kailangan. Magiging redundant na yung magiging attached agency niya. Basically, yun yung sinasabi niya. No? Anyone want to comment on this?
uh, I just joined the FDCP as a consultant this January. And my understanding of the setup is the PFA has its own standalone budget, which it uses independent of the FDCP budget. So it would be used for a lot of the initiatives, a lot of the efforts. The discovery that I had though was there is a very low budget for restoration, which to me is very problematic because a lot of it does need to be farmed out. We are not equipped to do it internally, but to be able to do some of the work that we've done, we've actually gone to FDCP to ask and for additional funding if they can get it from somewhere else, no. But from a functional standpoint, I think it really does make sense that PFA continues to report to FDCP from an operational standpoint with its own budget and whatever. Ideally, it is independent of that, but we do have output that goes to the FDCP. That's how it works in my mind from a setup standpoint. I just don't know the implication of it with the bill.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Kung Arjo.
Yeah, I just have a question. Either or Pop can answer. How is the budget given to for our restoration on an annual basis? Since it's not specific, I don't think it comes in a percentage in totality. Let's say 100%, 5% goes to restoration strictly. I don't think we have those rules. So I think I'm hearing you out that definitely you're the most credible person there. But you're screaming out of budget that in an annual basis, it's really killing all the films and the movement is really slow. So paano nyo po binibigyan yung archive natin or restoration ng budget in an annual basis? What's your basis lang po? That's my question po.
So annually may ceiling po na binibigay ang DBM. And for the film preservation program, the budget that was given for FDCP this year, if I'm not mistaken, is just 6 million pesos. So yun po. We're at the mercy of some of our supporters from the Senate and Congress to give yung additional budget for the film preservation.
Okay. How much po yung total in an annual basis for FDCP? Yes, for the past years lang po. I'm basing it on record. Total lang po.
For FDCP, this year we have 311 from the DBM, and then for the SICA we were able to have additional 58 million, but that's for the completion of other requirements when it transferred to the Philippine Film Heritage Building. Last year, around that amount, 306 million, not excluding the SICA.
Okay po. Yes, Ms. Rachel, I totally get it. But I think, Mr. Chair, we have to come on an agreement. We have to save the restoration. As you
Yeah.
said, everyone comes to an agreement here. I think in this room, no one will decline that fact. So I think we have
Yeah.
to tackle on the
Yeah.
specific percentage on an annual basis, how we save all these films that are dying. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kung Arjo. Actually, I agree that it should be an attached agency so that so that we make sure that it gets funded. Yes, Kung Lani.
Yeah. Speaking of funding, I would just like to ask FDCP, specifically Mr. Deo Katigbak, how much does it entail? For example, you did the management of the archiving of ABS-CBN. How much did it entail? Pero that was in the what decade? Until last year. Kasi baka- okay. Just to give us an idea, how much would it entail for preservation, restoration, and upkeep and maintenance of an archive of how many films we're talking about? Just to give us an idea.
On the restoration of films, it's actually it really depends on the condition of the film, so the age and what kind of difficulty there is. But it's always played in the range of about maybe 2 million to 3 million per movie. Now you will have an extreme case where it will go as high as five. When it was with ABS, you would put it at five. It's technically 20 million if you have. It really didn't make any more sense. Fair movies could be less than that. The more expensive movies could be higher than that. But one of the things that we should try to set up was having the scanning within ABS-CBN, which the FDC or the PFA is capable of. Because there are certain titles that you don't have to do a pristine restoration anyway. So, like for example, the PIA materials, for example, that have been turned over, don't still record the Philippine history, whether it's the Christianity movement in Cebu or the eruption of in 1960s. All of those ideally would be made available to the academe, to students, and whatnot. And those could be scanned, and those could be restored in-house. It's still within perfect cost. So you have two sets of things. There's one that you're funding inside, and there's one that you're doing in-house. Yan talaga. So, ideally, if you look at the film, 1 million to maybe 5 million, it is your budget at around 2 to 3 million per movie. Now, with regards to the vaults, it's really not building expense. Once you have the vault and you have your humidity control and you have your temperature control, basically, it's really just electricity that you have. So when ABS-CBN was shut down, since the vault was existing, the maintenance was really just the power. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is like FDCP and PFA has moved to the Film Heritage Building. Even if you add up all the 5 vaults of the PFA, it's not even 1/6 of the ABS-CBN vault. Now, if there is a mandate to turn over all of the film materials from different sources, and I remember before there was a request that all film producers also provide the PFA with copy of their films. That vault, s- well, by the end of this year, it's already going to be full. Because even the 2 vaults of ABS-CBN is already partially full. There will, I think it would be important also that there is a budget that's included to look for a real standard vault that will be outside of the Film Development Council CFA premises. And it would have to be a big vault. If you're looking at putting all of that in. I also remember that there was a discussion before for a national archive, which was not going to be specific to film. And one of the things that I asked is, if you're looking at the National Archive, you are looking at all of the categories of the arts. So you have television, you have literature, you have sculptures, you have artwork, and whatever. And all of those will have different requirements for preservation. It is a grand plan, but I think we also have to be realistic and pragmatic on what can be accomplished. Now, to me, this is very important. People say that it's entertainment and whatnot. But in an era where there is so much disinformation, or in an era where the young people don't like read books, they don't like documentaries. Film is a living document that shows our history on camera and off camera. So to me, it is an important artifact that we have to preserve. Now, in this case, for example, they have the 2,000 mile rule. You never keep your films in the same location. So like for example, the Library of Congress will have it in one location. You will have the others in the Midwest, in the salt mines. Then you would have another in Hollywood. So for example, from California, say, the films would survive everywhere else. But when you're here in the Philippines, everything is located already in just one place. So in Bali, for example, you look for a vault where you can put it. Uh, my understanding is the National Museum is looking at the property. I forget which location. If the property is sufficient enough to build a new vault, then it would be ideal to keep the prints. Then you keep the different copies in the Film Heritage Building. Maybe you keep another copy in the cloud somewhere and whatever. That way, regardless of what happens, you are going to preserve and protect our cinematic history. As I mentioned earlier, if the 2000 films produced pre-1970, only 350, that's roughly, what, 15% that has survived. Most of the subtitles are gone. Uh, what you see are the surviving video copies. The reason we are also pushing for film restoration is because even if you have video copies, if the copies themselves are not good, you can have AI converts and whatever. Diba pag nakikita nyo sa internet, it looks like wax figures and whatever. If you want to go really is to preserve the copies, ideally in the condition that the creators wanted it also. And I'd also always like to point out that even before the likes of Lav Diaz and Brillante, the Philippines was already getting so much honor internationally with the Lambert Avellanas and the Jerry De Leons and whatever. And I think it is such a big crime that a lot of the greats who did our cinematic legacy have been forgotten. I've attended several sessions where young people don't even know who Lino Broca is. They don't know who Mike De Leon is. They don't know who Isabel Dungal is. It's only what, 30, 40 years ago. To me, this is the ultimate tragedy. These things are not preserved. Now, it is about the young people from not looking for the old movies. Because how can they look for something that they were never introduced to? To me, it is always important, and which is why when I was with ABS-CBN, restoration was really part of the campaign. The advocacy sa pelikula was also very, very important. It's a great way to introduce the movies to the younger people. That's something that we're trying to do with the Film Development Council and the Philippine Film Archive. We restore the movies, but then it leads up to all of the other platforms, whether it's theatrical, whether it's with local government, whether it's with OneFlix, whether with its international festivals. We allow new generation Filipinos to experience the Pinimbakang Unikulang, Maynila sa Kunaliwanag and all of these movies. It's, it is culturally imperative that we do not forget the greatness that the past has produced. And it's important that it is preserved for future generations to love and appreciate. Because if this love for cinema dies with our generation because of our age bracket, that is such a huge tragedy for the Filipino people and future generations.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request
Yes, Kong Lani.
Mr. Katigbak to possibly submit to us a study on how much it would entail us to establish, for example, just an ABS-CBN type of archive facility with which includes restoration and all of the things that's incorporated in archiving to just give us an idea on how much we can appropriate for the said measure.
Yes,
Very
thank you,
much,
Kong
Mr.
Lani.
Chair.
I agree to that as well. I think it has been said by Kong Arjun and Kong Lani that we're looking at specific budget. We'll find a way if it's a percentage of the FCTC budget, something that's kind of mandated just to ensure that this happens because as you mentioned, sayang kasi ang daming mga films that are a snapshot of our history na kung mawala yun, wala na. No, so sige, so well, it looks like it's leaning towards having its agency because of this, di ba? Kasi kung hindi, it might get, kumbaga, baka mawala yun sa ibang kailangan ng mga FDCP, which alam naman natin, push comes to shove, with limited resources, baka ilagay sa iba't ibang bagay. Kung meron namang naka-institutionalize, it looks like magkakaroon ng sapat na atensyon. No? So, um, personally, I'm leaning towards you putting it as a touch agency, and then with this pending a specific budget, no, after your submission for further study. Okay. Yes. Anyone else? Oh, I just want to also say that ang kay Kong Sarah, that it does not affect the one bill one title, because yung creative production zones, they're not a separate budget. There's a constitution. There's with the act does not require amendment of 7916 so the Create Act because it operates under this bill's own statutory framework. So it's distinct from PEZA economic zone. So meron din po tayong so that's one subject one title rule under Article 6, Section 26 so 1 satisfied po yan. So when we look at our bill contrary to vis-a-vis that which is also under TOV Videogram Regulatory Board and Kawaling v. Comelec. So we do title need only fair express the general subject. So legally, we're okay with that. And the creative production zones are kind of germane sa ating Philippine film industry development. So part po yan in terms of the objective of the bill for advancing development. So we take a look and it's okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Good morning, Chairman. For SEA, we would like to discuss this for the incentive, section 9, letter U. That this includes the establishment of cinema clubs, but cinema clubs in barangays and schools. So cinema is not included here. So may we request that cinema be part of the cinema club because as we know we are CEP is struggling to bring people back to cinema. The experience in watching movie in cinema is totally different experience. So if you want children or people to watch movies again, I think they have to feel the experience in the cinema watching the movies. So we would like to request that cinema be included in the cinema club. And aside from that, another thing, if you're going to show films or movies in barangays and schools, we would like to know what is the window because it will be critical for the theater groups, for the cinema, if it's going to be a shorter window because it will affect our business, the cinema business. So we would like to request that it could probably be more than a year. Movies that are shown in theaters, be shown in barangays or schools, not less than a year. So if that's possible.
Yeah, this
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Any comments about this? About this muna. So we will be including that section 9, and we will also adapt that more than a year before they get shown.
Thank you.
I think that should be okay with everyone. Okay? Yeah. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and everyone. My apologies for going back to the previous topic, but since we are now leaning to retaining the Philippine Film Archives as an attached agency with the chair's permission, we were just going to suggest if you would like to incorporate Section 14 with Section 5 so we don't separate the introduction of the agency and its further, information regarding
So section
14, sir.
14 and
And 5, because they're both discussions on the Philippine Film Archive, just for streamlining. But
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we've discussed that as well. Yeah, thank you. Well taken. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. From TESDA, just to jump to section 29 on skills development and support. We recognize and we support everything that's been written here, but I just would like to go to paragraph number 3. The commission, it says the commission shall likewise develop targeted skills development, etc. If we can just specifically and explicitly mention industry players, industry stakeholders, particular, and also of course TESDA, on 4 points. At TESDA right now, technical and vocational education are considered to have 2 exit points. Number 1 would be jobs. After completing technical and vocational education, they can actually proceed to employment or jobs. But the second one would be some would actually wanted to proceed to higher educational institution. So what we're saying is we wanted the recognition or the certification that they acquire from TESDA be also recognized and they can proceed to bachelor's degree. We have micro-credential programs now. We have the Philippine Credit Transfer System. Okay, and that's actually the reason why I wanted TESDA to be explicitly mentioned because DepEd and TESDA are actually already mentioned in other parts. And of course, another thing would be with the development of programs together with TESDA, we can institutionalize and standardize them, meaning they are already part of what we're offering. People or students or graduates can actually acquire corresponding national certificates, maybe, or competency standards. And after all, TESDA is still considered a technical and vocational education
Mhm.
authority. So that's all from my part.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to get clarity on. I know we are crafting this bill, but in um reality, what are the similarities and differences in terms of implementation for TESDA and FAP? Is it the same? Do they have overlap? Do they have stark differences?
Okay, if I may answer
Yes.
first. We actually have started discussing or talking with the Film Academy of the Philippines. Initially, the agreement is FAP to run trainings, well, physically in the TESDA facilities, but eventually we would like to, study, evaluate and all that, all the programs that you're offering. I think this is in partnership with the guilds. It's not actually FAP that will run, but will tap the corresponding guilds to run the programs. Now, the objective, of course, is we wanted to again institutionalize the programs that you're offering. We also wanted to standardize, and when we say standardize, it will have its corresponding assessment and evaluation whether or not a particular graduate or learner can acquire what particular NC level, okay, which also corresponds to the Philippine Qualifications Framework. And again, all those certifications will be useful once the learner decides to proceed to higher education. Because under the Philippine Credit Transfer System, the ladderization program that's present already across DepEd, TESDA, and CHED, they will still, I mean, the certification that the students will acquire will be recognized at a higher level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. FAP.
Thank you. Just to add, TESTA is actually part of our board of trustees as well. So we are in close coordination in terms of these accreditation programs. Um, Underway is our national skilled workers database. So in the process, we are vetting all the legitimate workers that would be under the Film Academy, including the guilds. So yes, we are going through all of these trainings and we will align with testing
Okay.
on this.
Okay, good. So we'll adopt TESTA being mentioned in the bill and including those for your credit system, no? To be also part dito, especially mga NCs and those for potentially higher education. Maybe we can include that within your wording, so if you can submit that as well with us, so we can put it in the bill.
One more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Just short additional information. The industry, industry stakeholders are very much, part of what we're doing right now because I think in terms of speed in updating the information or speed in updating the training programs, it would actually come from them. So, yes, the industry boards are actually part of the discussions, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning.
Mark.
Again, on section 29, to the point of DG Nelly, we would like to submit for consideration that under the last paragraph before section 30, such offices shall coordinate with the commission in implementing training programs. I think this is referring to the film and creative workforce offices that are to be established. As we are considering also that in the direction of strengthening workforce development, starting in senior high school, of course, we would like to propose for consideration that this be included in implementing training programs, including work immersion training programs for senior high school, of course, in coordination with the Department of Education, and so forth and so on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sounds good. So we'll add that for DepEd. Yes. Yeah, direct person.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we just like from the producers guild, we'd just like to clarify 2 points. The first is on section 3, the scope, because it mentions here that the act shall cover all formats of film, web series, or series that were released or on traditional platforms that are migrated to online streaming platforms and other audiovisual content. We just like to understand for our members, producer members. So this clearly covers movies, feature films of any length. This clearly covers television series produced for traditional platforms, meaning television and digital. But does it cover other, when it mentions other audiovisual content, does it cover, I remember there was a discussion about news, documentaries, vlogs, all other audiovisual materials. Is it limited to narrative? Is would it be scripted narrative perhaps? Just so we understand how far the scope will be for our producers. And then the second point, if I may already jump in, there were points, there were items discussed earlier that we just want to clarify. Is the intention for those to be included in the draft already, or are those down the line discussions?
Be part of the substitute bill. The May 6th substitute bill was shared to everyone, and then further discussions is this
The new items.
yeah, the
Okay.
3 items to be discussed, but for deliberation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. May I be recognized?
Yes.
For the new bill of the substitute bill, we be able to have the opportunity to comment on it? The director and I were discussing, and we believe that a lot of the points that were introduced will materially affect the producers. So we would like the opportunity to review with them further and provide a position paper, especially with regard to a lot of commercial implications.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Sounds good. content, maybe we can ask FDCP because I know an IRR will follow thereafter. So can you comment on that?
Well, honestly, when it was pointed out, I agree that it's very vague. And definition shall not cover news, even the vlogs, because that's part of audiovisual content. Maybe we should define the other audiovisual content in such a way that this would be beneficial for the commission and for the industry rather than as vague as this.
So section 3, well, the audiovisual content, it's it's broad and inclusive, so maybe we can be more specific because audiovisual content includes films, television, online series, as I mentioned, documentaries, animation, short films, other cinematic audiovisual works intended for public exhibition or distribution. But we can add this that expresses exclusions, whether we want to exclude it for news broadcasts, whether that's journalistic content, current affairs programming. So it may be under KBP, self-regulation, um, with NTC oversight. So we want to make sure that we're not also overstepping on their mandate. Um, because it might create the jurisdictional confusion, especially when it is an in film industry bill, and then when we talk about press freedom, for example. So we want to make sure there's no conflict there.
Yeah.
So, well, my leaning is we can explicitly exclude it and add it in the definition. Maybe that would help, unless you want it included.
Maybe we can just review what the parameters will be because we were discussing what is apparently new now would be that the FDCP with the elevated scope would now cover television production, which some of our members are also television producers, but there is no organization that covers all television
Yeah.
producers.
And to that, there's also user-generated content.
Yeah. So,
So are those going to be, for example, TikTok, Facebook,
yeah.
YouTube? Are they included unless, are they commercially produced cinematic work? Diba? So that's something to talk about, yes.
Mr. Chair, when I saw it earlier, actually was sidebarring with ED Rachel, if the word audiovisual could be removed because it is so all-encompassing
Mhm.
and is subject to such a varied interpretation. Maybe for the purposes of the bill, it would really be specific to films if that is what we are looking at. Right? And if you want to include television programs, that's also fine. But especially now in this streaming universe, even the television side of it is starting to become voluminous and untenable. So you kind of want to have something that's more systematic rather than everybody saying, "Oh, how come we're not included?" Or how come?
Mhm,
So
mhm. Okay. We'll take it. Any comments? That sounds good. We will revisit this, and maybe make it more specific, film and TV. Because if not, it will be news, user generated content. There's also advertising. So ayun, yes.
because Mr. Chair, even for television, it could be serialized content. By all specifics, because documentaries can still be part of TV, news is part of TV, visual variety is part of TV. So I think if because film is the basis, maybe it is the narrative format in itself that would be the limiting or the encapsulating factor. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Maybe we can review it as scripted narrative. I remember when we were discussing the Eddie Garcia, this was already a sticky issue, and maybe we can just take a look at how we defined it there. And because the scope is really, as you said, it's quite voluminous when you go into um, narratives that go online. Because YouTube series there's so many of them, and some of them are not actually for commercial purposes. Some are just made as user generated, but how do you determine what the delineation is? So there is it actually is merits a lot of discussion on how to fine tune the scope because this is what the film commission will cover.
Okay. Any suggestions on the wording? Do you want us to sit on it further? Because I mean, even if we make it cinematic audiovisual content, it's still, I think, debatable.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Yeah,
Commander.
I totally understand where you're coming from. At the same time, Mr. Chair, I think it's for us to be able to help them more. Because as you said, it's modern. Streaming is modern, times are changing. You know, we have to consider everyone as our mission. So that being said, I think it has to be a specific bill so that furthermore we can discuss all facts and you know, put a solution to all the problems that exist. That's all,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commander. Maybe we can because at some point we can't make it very too specific as well. So we want to know the nuance of it, which is that's where the nitty gritty, the more challenging part is, right? So um, we want the umbrella term, but we want to tighten it. So if that makes sense, like we want to keep it broad, but then you know targeted. So I think maybe for a discussion about that, yes.
Mr. Chair, maybe we could just put on the table that yeah, scripted narrative productions for commercial purposes, for commercial exhibition purposes, or something to that effect, would already limit. At least it removes a lot of the TV productions, game, musical variety. It removes news, diba? It still sort of encompasses documentaries, which are beneficiaries of the FTCP as well. So maybe along those lines, I don't know what
Yeah.
other wording we can propose. Next,
Thinking
sir.
maybe like cinematic creative work, or because cinematic audiovisual works, again, what's already in the bill is film, television, online series, documentaries, animation, short films, and maybe we can even include because Kumarjo mentioned streaming, so streaming originals, but we exclude news, current affairs, vlogs, user-generated content, and advertising. If that is so far a working, definition. Cinematic audiovisual work. Because cinematic already moved away from news, from user generated content. As an option, where we, yes.
Does this include television commercials? Because it's also as a commercial content. Do you archive television commercials? Okay. Kasi di ba, sometimes it becomes a content also. It's a material where students also learn from, especially if you're engaged in advertising and marketing.
Yeah. Advertising Kong, I think could be excluded. Just my personal exclude. Advertising, anything for advertising per se, should be excluded. Yes.
Mr. Chair, since we are already discussing the scope and the limitations as to what kind of format the Film Commission should have, oversight on. Given that we are already expressing that advertisements should be excluded, I would like to go back to Section 21, where it is part of the incentive of the formats that shall be given incentives. I would like to highlight commercials cited under that. But also would like to take note of the exclusion of documentaries. So may we suggest that we replace commercials with documentaries instead?
Um, Given the direction, if assuming that we adopt excluding advertising, it would be prudent to say that we can change advertising to documentaries, unless there's any objection, because that makes it, you know, tighter in terms of scope. Because if not, advertising, commercial, these are whole. It seems that it's going beyond FDCP already, or a Film Development Act. If everyone's in agreement with that. Kung ako lang, that seems okay. Unless there's objections. Okay? All right? Okay.
And another thing po, also under section 21, with regard to foreign incentives on their TV series,
Or section. I said section 21, yes. Okay. DNR.
sorry, QPE, qualified Philippine expenditures, also under section 21. Then, I'd like to highlight that the requested or the required foreign production, qualified production expenditure for series is lowered to 15%. There is already an existing program of FESO, which is called the Film Location Incentives Program. It is a cash rebate scheme, and it already requires a total of around 24 million pesos per season. May we suggest that we just adopt that requirement as well for this tax incentive scheme? The reason, sir, is since it is considered, it is for
So you're saying, sorry, so 24 million for what specific foreign?
series.
A series. Okay, so because currently it says 15 for streaming or television series. So you're saying to adopt to 24.
To 24, yes.
Okay. How about for feature films and animation or visual effects projects? How will that? How do you suggest that that will be tiered
It
if
varies.
the series is going to be adopted at 24?
Right now, under feature films and series, animations are already covered in the existing program. So they follow the same because
So it's one um, amount for all, 24 million.
for feature films, the current Mr. Chair is 20.
Okay, so series 24, feature films 20.
Yes, 24 per season. Minimum of 8 episodes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That already includes live action and
Season,
animated.
one season, 8 episodes, 24 million. And then for feature films, 20 million.
20 million po. That includes already live feature films and
Yeah.
animated feature films.
Okay. Interesting. For foreign productions na QP. Um, anyone want to comment on this? Basically, from the current, which is B, foreign productions, on the other hand, shall qualify for incentives if they meet the following minimum QPE. Total QPE, which is 25 million for feature films, 15 million for streaming or television series, 10 million for animation or visual effects projects, and 5 million for commercials, which again, we will be talking about taking commercials out because if we exclude completely advertising. The proposal now is to make 24 million for series, which is 8 episodes, and 20 million for feature films.
For it to be worded
And animation.
at least 8 episodes so that we cover limited series.
At least 8 episodes. Okay.
6 to 8. Mr. Leo is now.
68.
Yeah, 6 to 8.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes you go below 8 now.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Any comments?
And then documentaries
Looks
po,
like.
because a documentary series could be lower in terms of number of episodes. It can be just 1 episode or 3 maximum for documentaries.
In in anyone's experience with dealing with foreign productions coming in, do you think this is better?
I think, Mr. Chair, it's achievable because the way we should look at it is also the way foreign productions look at their budget. In the Philippines, we look at our production budget on a per taping or shooting day. Outside, it's on a per episode. And then an episode could take like 3 days to film. Uh, Average actually depende po sa type of format or the type of story, that's how they determine their budget. A big production could go beyond $5 million per episode because of the artists attached to it, etc.
Okay.
$5 million is very big na po in terms of peso equivalent.
Okay, if we decide to adopt this, we will also have to adopt the local productions. And it goes back to, I guess, Kong Shirley earlier was about feature films with 10 million. Maybe that's something that can be discussed. But it seems you're putting, well, if we can benchmark with foreign production, that's series is higher than a feature film. That actually makes sense. Diba? Sir Leo?
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering, no, kasi right now we have, like, for example, this is the budget of a particular series. But what I've noticed is when they look for incentives, really looking more at what is the percentage discount relative to their budget. Like, for example, just this year, Thailand is implementing that, like, for example, in terms of film distribution, if they were to spend 5 million baht over a 2-year period, there is a 20% rebate or 20% discount. Then when you look at a lot of the European countries and whatever, it will specify that if it's a spend within the country, not the budget, episode budget, but within the country of a certain amount, they will get something like 25, 35% and whatnot. I think it is the more significant aspect of it. What is the discount or the rebate that they will get relative to their budget? So even yung budgets, you can scale it. So the higher the budget, maybe the bigger the rebate. Because when you think about it, if they bring in more people, more hotels, more restaurants, there's more revenue on the ancillary side of things. This one just tells you the budget, but it's hard to pinpoint what is the ultimate upside for any foreign production until they actually see the numbers. Aside from the fact that, say, local governments are going to offer discounts and they will stimulate permits and whatnot, it's still limited at the cost reduction. Eh. So what is it that makes sense to the Philippine government as a discount, but at the same time you're looking at it that it's contributing naman to the other side businesses, plane fare, hotel rates, food, and whatever, tourists, they move around and whatever.
I certainly agree with that. I think when we're talking to some people in the industry, and they were saying that the reason that Thailand is getting more is actually of these international productions is because of that. That's what they look for, and we lose on some of few millions na lang na kulang because hindi natin na offer yon sa kanila. No, so and you're saying that they even bumped it up higher. So maybe we can add somewhere here in a clause that says maybe the commission can adjust given the negotiation. Maybe we can have that as a floor and then maybe a ceiling, but yeah, in a way hindi naman pwedeng over, 'di ba? So maybe the board can also decide on that.
It's Mr. Chair, pwede rin naman may cap eh. Like, for example, if you say that it's a budget of, say, 25 million, it was 50 million. But if since that your rebate is capped to a certain either amount,
Mhm.
eventually limited. Parang hindi rin naman hugi yung Pilipinas.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
basically, you can have that if it's a lower budget production, they have a lower rebate. If it's a higher budget production, they have a higher rebate. Parang it's the same thing. Like if it's a studio production,
Yes.
they will have more budgets. If it's an indie production, they will have a lower budget.
Well noted. So my preferential conditions, fiscal incentives, and then my ceiling cap ang rebate. So, okay.
Mr.
We'll
Chair.
definitely have to review this. Actually, napaka-importante nito because bas- this is really where we can have more, no? Ang lagi nating tinatanong, how can we have more in film productions here? And to add to that, it's a trickle effect, no? Kasi kung nandito sila, not only for tourism, but also where they will eat, where will they will stay. And if we give them a good impression, they will come back and more can come. No? So, napaka-importante that we get them in the door. So, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to ask if it is wise to put specific amounts in the law itself, or would that be something that can be left to the agency? It took 24 years before a new law is going to be done. In 25 years, these amounts will no
Yes.
longer be viable.
Yes, and in fact, economic realities, inflation trends, as an we can have it as an IRR. We can have it as an IRR. But then maybe we can put it in the law that they should create a scheme like this where it reflects rebates with ceiling, etc. No,
Including current production realities.
current production realities. Yes, let's find the best wording for this. So we will be reviewing this because again, this is very important. Yes.
Kasi Mr. Chair, pwedeng the specifics on amounts and whatever, that's something that would be studied on an annual basis. So the wording would just be neutral enough that will give us an opening to keep reviewing it.
Yes.
So for example, what else can be added to the bundle aside from say local permits and local permits? Like the reason that Thailand is also booming is because they've been putting up a lot of virtual studios. And for example, the virtual studio in Quintana, currently, if you're trying to cost save and whatever, you can do practically everything there. So it's really high-end stuff. If you have more sound stages, like for example, if you were to tap the sound stage of ABS, for example, uh, sometimes what they want is an area where they can control audio as well. You certainly things when you have so many variables on sound and on technical, but that's why they also prefer sound stages, is because it is an environment where all elements are at all aspects can be controlled. So if, for example, with CMB, with equipment rental, and then you have sound stages and you have virtual studios that are maybe could be incentivized also so that they would be put up here in the Philippines, then that becomes part of the entire bundle that you're offering. So it's like literally there's a criteria
Yes.
that's one stop shop.
Yes. And I think the creative production zone was supposed to come in where they can have tax incentives to come in for production. No? So yes. Well, agree. No, that's like we can make that as part of an IRO within law saying that you're required to do a plan for this, even periodically, quarterly reviewed, and then annually submitted as for general review, something along those lines.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, from the VIR, I would like to clarify under Section 23, with the title tax credits. If we are referring to tax credits that will be deducted from tax due or liability under the National Internal Revenue Code. Otherwise, we propose that since this percentage are based on expenses, we can reword instead to enhance deductions instead of tax credits because tax credits are
Okay. So,
deducted from tax due or tax liability.
so ma'am, you're saying if we put tax credits, it will have to be another National Internal Revenue Code amendment.
Yes, that would be the case, Mr. Chair.
So enhanced
Enhanced
deductions.
deductions instead of tax
Okay,
credits.
sure.
Um,
No problem.
with the direction of our mother agency, DOF.
Okay. Sure. Yes.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Enhanced deductions.
And just a quick manifestation from the BIR with regard to the funding issue raised a while ago. It is true that under the law on VAT on digital services act that the creative industries are entitled to 50% of the collection. And we are happy to present to this body that on the first quarter of collections of the VAT on DSP, the BIR has collected hundreds of millions from the players in the digital service industry. So the BIR is only concerned with the collection, but as to the budget, we are hands on. So that's part of the BIR.
Okay, ma'am. Kasi, we appreciate your work on this. Again, nakasabi sa batas, dapat pumalik for creative industries. So, ayan, kailangan makita, ma-reflect sa budget expenditure natin para sa creative industries. Wag naman sana pumunta sa ibang mga bagay na sinasabi natin. Okay. Yes. Okay. So it looks like it's 12 o'clock. I understand we've kept you for almost 3 hours now. It seems that especially with certain substantive parts of the bill we need to review, we won't be able to vote on it today. But certainly we will be sharing all files, documents right after this meeting. And please take a look at it again, and then please submit again position papers. We really appreciate the position papers submitted last time. But given the discussion, we really appreciate that you're really listening on this. Please submit so that we can review again a more comprehensive one given the discussion today. So wag naman sana ulitin lang yung binigay niyo ng position paper. Sana basing on the discussion na rin today. Last two, three, and then yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. But we're talking about incentive. So when we read this decision paper, I mean the document, we have not seen any incentive for cinema. So we are requesting because just this short information. Before pandemic, cinema theaters was around 1,100. So right now it's 700. Why? Because there's a lot of machines that broke down during the pandemic, and because of the gross, the performance of the movies right now, we cannot afford to then repair or purchase another projector. So in terms of this, since our venue, the cinema is the venue, the filmmakers that this committee is giving incentive. So we would like to request if possible whenever we do upgrades, modernization, technology upgrades or whatever. So we can be given a chance to have tax reduction or whatever. So just as an incentive, or another thing is training for our personnel, welfare for cinema, personnel. So there's a lot of, I mean, few things that we can recommend for the cinema to benefit. And last is we would also like to be included or consulted whenever there's a creation of AR. If there's a cinema matter or related matter in that includes cinema.
Yes.
So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mambing. What we can do is in the IR, when crafting the plan, we can include that those who are going to be part of the discussion. So we can put that in the bill. And what you were saying earlier about tax incentives for cinema, we will be reviewing that as well. So I understand that it's not part of your first position paper, but if you can submit another one, please do so. Yes, Ms. Veron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I just want to go back to the composition. Mr. Chair, that the national agencies are we talk about streamlining and standardizing, but only local government units are provided in the Constitution under Article 10. And if we are being selected by DILG, our, our concern, Mr. Chair, is that the tenor and the representation would also be dictated by the national agency that who will nominate us later on, which we are sure they will. So for purposes of, local autonomy, I think they'll ask us to look at the section later on. And because there are so many functions given for local government case, I reviewed the whole bill, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I'm gonna look at it. So just manifestation, Mr. Chair, if you will submit our official position paper. But local autonomy is enshrined in the Constitution, and Ms. Bernardo will be the representative of local government case. And given the coordination mechanisms provided in the bill, and since our intention is to really your opening statement, Mr. Chair, if I may quote
Okay. Yes, yes. Before start mo ako sa quote kanina. I know, I understand Miss Vernon, you're one of the, I've worked with you in LCP, you're one of the most hardworking, passionate people I know. Um, alam po natin na gusto niyo talagang maging part ng discussion. Ito lang, kung ma-allow natin that are members as well as LCP, and I know it's beyond you, LNP, can have a standardized tax for our films in the Philippines. Pwedeng pwede.
So we remember the last discussion that local government units are collecting cultural tax. There was a not so nice comment about it.
Yes.
Probably, the League of Cities can give us an idea
Oo nga.
how it's being implemented in different localities. Kasi parang ang pangit nung narinig
Oo.
namin comment. It can be an incentive probably to lower it or to, have a standardized or uniform
Yeah.
collection on the cultural tax.
Yes, I actually see akong Lanigan. After yung last meeting, very passionate. Wala po sila today, no? Wala sila today. So, baka may comment kayo na, okay, baka pwede nyo lagay sa position paper nyo that a standardized tax and where the taxes go, sa cultural, amusement, anywhere else for the film industry, para ma-review din natin, no? Sige. Kasi, okay, anyone else? Yes.
Honorable Chair and members of the committee, Carlos Espinosa po from the DOF. Good afternoon. Inasmuch as the matter of tax incentives is being discussed, and in interest as well as in the interest of time, we also understand that this may be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means as well. But if the chair would allow, may we manifest our initial observations and comments on
Yes,
that?
this will be also consulted with the Ways and Means Committee. But I know you will make a statement, but before that, I just want to say that, our Philippine industry, especially the movies, is one of the most taxed in the world. Regionally, we are the highest. One of the highest. No? So, yun lang po. Sige, ano po yung statement niyo?
Ayun, thank you, Chair. We will be submitting an official position later, Mr.
Yan. If we can do, we looked into it and we are one of the highest tax. May merong VAT, merong amusement tax, merong tax sa production, may cultural tax. Pwede natin isa-isahin. Pero sige ma'am, we'd love to hear from you.
We will be submitting an official position paper, Mr. Chair. But at the outset, we would like to say that the department does support the intent of the proposal to promote the growth of the local film industry. However, there are specific provisions, of course, the fiscal ones that we have reservations on, specifically Section 9 M
Section 9.
M, O, and P to the extent po that they impinge on and have implications for the existing framework for the grant of tax incentives. So yung M po, yung to grant, empowering the commission to grant tax credits, we're okay po with providing non-monetary incentives, of course. The identification po of creative production zones, and P, formulation and recommendation of incentive, since it does not specify whether that incentive is fiscal or non-fiscal. And the related provisions, Mr. Chair. Generally lang po, and we will elaborate on this in our official position paper. We have reservations with the proposal to authorize the commission to issue tax credits and grant tax incentives. Mainly because we already have an existing framework, which is in the National Internal Revenue Code as amended, specifically by the Create and Create More Acts. So, in general po, we would recommend alignment and harmonization with the tax code in general. In the interest of time, Mr. Chair, but we will elaborate on this in our position paper. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Chair,
Related also to the tax credit scheme. Currently, as was mentioned earlier, what we have in place is a scheme for cash rebate. The way the provisions are mentioned here, the rebate and credit are used interchangeably. It has to be specific. I understand the position of the representative from the DOF, but um, our stand also is for the tax credit scheme to be on top of or an alternative incentive that would complement the existing cash rebate system with the intention of fulfilling or answering the gap that the cash rebate cannot meet at the moment. And if we should look at it, we should also consider, an outsider's perspective as to why people would come to the Philippines even with these incentives in place. We have to look at the region. We have to look at our neighboring countries. Right now in Asia Pacific, majority are offering, even Thailand, cash rebate. Their qualified expenditure required for feature film is around 50 million baht, equivalent to 94 million pesos. We are actually offering lower. The only reason we cannot compete is the cap and the lower rate of rebate that we have. So in order to augment that, we propose that tax credit be in place as an alternative, but not to replace the rebates, the cash rebate system.
Okay, but in fact, you're saying you want to strengthen the cash rebates
If we are to review as how we can be
to
competitive,
be more competitive.
really it's the cap right now that is our hindrance.
Yes. So we should be able to either increase the cap or um, make it that they can decide
Yes, an option. Like
as an
if
option.
you're already applying for a cash rebate, you can no longer apply for tax credit and vice versa. That way, if those who don't find cash rebate attractive, then you go to the tax credit option.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll take note of that. Thank you. Yes.
Ah, Umaga po, Mr. Chair at sa honorable members. May Moreno po mula po sa DBM. While we recognize po the intent of the bill, of the sub-bill po, we would like to put forward po our initial observation with regard to 5 items or 5 sections of the said bills. Specifically on Section 4 and Section 14 on the elevation of the Film Development Council into commission and the establishment of the Philippine Film Archives. So we would like to suggest for the committee or the council to consider the government optimization program. Since siguro po habang iniintay na maipasa yung batas, baka ang council po ay can propose that to the committee on optimizing the executive branch para mapag-aralan na kaagad, hangga't maaga, ano ba yung mga possible na application, redundancies, ano ba yung mga possibilities or magiging implications in elevating the council into commission at yung archives. Kasi considering po yung previous bill po I mean yung existing law po sa Film Development Council po, kasama naman po talaga sa function po nila yung pagtatatag po ng film archives. So yun po yung mga pwede po sanang i-explore habang hindi pa po nagiging batas itong proposal po. No? Para po nasasabayan na po natin para mas magiging mabilis po kung sakali po. Sa Section 26 po on Film Endowment Fund, Section 38 use of income, and Section 14 po appropriations, we would like to put forward and reiterate the policy stance po on this, that we discourage po the creation of fund, the use of income, and the earmarking of funds, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, on Section 24 enforcement, I believe Section C could now be removed because the selection of tax and of cinema and its remittance to the commission is no longer applicable because that was due to the Supreme Court ruling. So we can now do away with the section C.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? I do know that you know, with this, I think reorganization, incentives, tax, and also certain grants. This bill will really um, be beneficial for the film industry. So we're hoping that we can get your support, especially maybe in the next committee meeting we can finalize, as it will also go again as mentioned, the chair on Ways and Means. Um, but it seems that there should also be a more competitive system in place um, when we talk about the development of the industry. So hoping that uh, we can get your position papers and then we can review it for the next meeting. So with that, are there any other matters? And we will also be discussing House Bill 9182 in the next meeting. Hello, kung okay. There being no other matters to discuss, do we hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. There being no objection, this meeting is hereby adjourned.